So Bungie made a lot of changes to hand cannons in recent months. With the 2.0 update, it nerfed hand cannons to a major degree. Shooting any hand cannon at its maximum fire rate increased its weapon bloom, which meant some shots would not hit their target even if your aim was true while aiming down sight. They also put a very punishing damage fall off on hand cannons as well, so much so that a sidearm doesn't experience any damage fall off until a few feet after a hand cannon sees a drop off. They also have a decreased ammo inventory, meaning you have less bullets to work with, which is very noticeable to anyone trying to use a hand cannon PvE. You run out of bullets far too often than you would using any other primary. And the trusty, used to be aptly named Hawkawesome, took a hit to its range. One good thing came to it, the inability to one-hit kill a Guardian in the Crucible, granted that the chance of that happening was close to none. With all that, Hawkmoon and hand cannons as a whole gathered dust for most of the launching of the Taken King. Then came 2.1.0. Hand cannons got a slight buff, increased ADS accuracy. While minor, it helped curb the chance of firing blank shots to a lower degree, yet it still happens from time to time. Most of the community, including myself, was excited to use hand cannons again, but as I continued to scroll through the patch notes for 2.1, my heart began to sink. Hawk Not So Awesome got its wings clipped yet another time. It had its range decreased again, as well as the holding aces and luck in the chamber getting a decrease to its extra damage factor. All these changes came in despite of the fact that almost no one was complaining or using Hawkmoon for most of the part of pre-2.1. Hawkmoon became a permanent dust gatherer in the vaults of many Guardians. To get to the point, I'm going to address why these changes killed Hawkmoon and what Bungie should do to address not only Hawkmoon, but the hand cannons as a whole. I will first go over the holding aces / luck in the chamber nerf. The nerf to its damage factor, from a 33% increase in damage in year 1 to a 20% increase in 2.1, greatly reduced its reliability factor when it came to killing Guardians in the Crucible. Back in year 1, you could reliably get a 2-shot headshot kill if at least one of those shots were lucky bullets. However, that 13% decrease now makes it to where a normal headshot and a 1 lucky bullet headshot leaves an enemy with a sliver of health, meaning you have to hope that one of the bullets gets a double proc on the damage increase and the normal bullet to get that 2-shot headshot. It may not seem so bad that it makes it like all other hand cannons, but that's just the problem. It isn't supposed to be like every other hand cannon. It's an exotic for a reason. With that unreliability is in its extra damage, you are left with an exotic that is the quality of a mediocre legendary. The Ayaz Luna, the legendary twin of Hawkmoon, can roll luck in the chamber and final round, but its extra damage remains as 33% for each. It makes it more reliable in 2-shotting a target than its exotic brother, not to mention that its range stayed untouched in the 2.1 update, meaning that its range is close to that of the original Hawkmoon. It makes it an inferior choice to other similar archetype hand cannons that you can roll better and more useful unnerfed perks. All it required was a check to make sure that it didn't one-shot a target. If that had been all that was done, Hawkmoon wouldn't be a low-tier hand cannon that it finds itself as now. The next thing to touch on is the 2.0 change to hand cannon's ADS, or aim down sight, accuracy decrease. Bungie nerfed hand cannons' overall accuracy if firing at the weapon's maximum fire rate for their precise aim. Instead of decreasing the stability of them, they just added a layer of RNG to whether a bullet will connect or not, creating what is known to the community as the phantom bullet. The goal was to discourage players from spamming the trigger and recklessly aiming and hope that the bullets meet. The problem with that is that players fired at the maximum fire rate not because they had bad aim and were hoping that they could get enough bullets on the guy to kill him. It was so that it would get their nice time to kill. That's what made hand cannon such a reliable weapon back in year 1. Discouraging players from using weapons that the way that they were made is very counterintuitive. If that was the case, why did they not do that to scout rifles? People spam Mida, people spam the Soros GIS-47. Now, you see a return of weapons like the Last Word and Thorn. The reason for this is because the amount of bullets it takes to kill in the Crucible for hand cannons is almost universally the same, 3 to the head or 4 to the body. But hand cannons RNG problem makes it hard to do that effectively. The archetypes that are hit the hardest are those like Hawkmoon and the first curse, the medium to slow fire rate. They need to fire at their maximum fire rate if they are to compete in the arena. But the archetypes of Thorn and Last Word give players a chance to nullify the ADS RNG nerf. They can fire below their maximum fire rate to the degree of Hawkmoon, but not notice so much bloom because that fire rate is below their maximum. Hawkmoon is not reliable in both its damage output and its accuracy because of many of these changes. The last change that came to Hawkmoon was a reduction in its range. Its original range stat was reduced from 46 to a devastating 26. Bungie rolled back on its range, which hurt the weapon in numerous ways. The one obvious change is that it became less accurate and does less damage after a certain range, which makes the damage drop off much more noticeable than in RDS. Even with Hammerforge equipped, it is still not near the old range stat when it was in its prime. The other change to this was its aim assist stat. Hawkmoon has the lowest aim assist stat out of its archetype and the second lowest out of all exotic hand cannons, the first being the Last Word. Range has now been revealed as interconnected with aim assist and also weapon bloom. The more range a weapon has, the higher aim assist it will have and the less weapon bloom it will have when firing. With the range stat being reduced, the base aim assist of Hawkmoon at 50 for its Year 2 variant and 40 for its Year 1 is hit hard. And with the ADS accuracy decrease, the aim assist does not do anything for the weapon anymore. For a mechanic that is meant to tighten the bloom of a weapon's accuracy, it was completely negated by the ADS max fire rate nerf. Even with the recent buff to hand cannons for their ADS accuracy, it is not enough to make up for the horrible bullet spread of Hawkmoon and the big phantom bullet phenomenon it encounters. With all that said, here are the proposed changes I believe Bungie should make in order to give players a reason to use not only Hawkmoon, but other hand cannons that share in its archetype. First, eliminate RNG from ADS at the maximum fire rate. This eliminates the penalty that players face for using hand cannons the way they were designed, and eliminates the rage factor from players shooting blanks about half the time. This will make hand cannons much more reliable in killing in the Crucible. Second, increase the range of Hawkmoon by 10. The range nerf was an unnecessary change that hurt Hawkmoon in more ways than one. Some of those ways I'll be going on later in the video. It made bullets less precise as the bloom code widened in early ranges. At this point in time, sidearms have a higher max range stat than that of a Hawkmoon with Hammerforge. And let's not forget that sidearms can also roll rangefinder, which further increases their range by 20%. For a sidearm to have more range than a more beefy and large hand cannon makes no sense. To counteract the nerf, if they wish to keep in the ADS RNG nerf, they could increase the range of Hawkmoon by 10 to make it 36, so that it has a good range and does not go over that of the first curse, which has a range stat of 53 max, without taking into account its Deadeye and Namesake perk, which further increases the curse's range. This way the bullets can actually hit their target if they choose to stay with the RNG factor, and it doesn't feel like we're firing blanks. Third, bring luck in the chamber and holding aces back to the 33% damage increase. The decrease to the damage multipliers for Hawkmoon made it a mediocre legendary with an exotic quality, meaning you were practically wasting a exotic slot. It makes no sense to nerf a perk when equality is what Bungie tries to strive for. This was seen in Year 1 with the Suros regime and its namesake perk, where it was actually stronger than a perk close to it, Half Glass Full. What they did, they decreased its damage scaling to that of Half Glass Full because of its extra damage. So for Bungie to weaken its perks despite it being equal to perks like Final Round and Luck in the Chamber, it goes counter to what they did to Suros regime. The only thing Bungie should keep on Hawkmoon is the check so that there is not the one-shot kill in PvP. Fourth, stop making hand cannons that are built for medium to long range encounters, / tune back damage fall off, / stop with blanket nerfs. It is no secret that Hawkmoon was made as a weapon to be used in medium to long range encounters, along with other hand cannons with similar and slower fire rates. But, with damage falloff being separated from range, they are forced to be used at close range, which they get beat by other shotguns, the last word, sidearms, and or auto rifles. Bungie needs to stop forcing weapons to be used in ways they weren't initially designed for, and that the damage falloff needs to be addressed for hand cannons, since they see it much earlier on than sidearms. Also, blanket nerfs. It is making very little sense to be nerfing an entire weapon class just based off of a couple outliers. The reason for the nerf for hand cannons was because of Hawkmoon's ability to go against scout rifles and sometimes even sniper rifles effectively, and also the usefulness of Thorn and Last Word, mainly seen by Trials in the House of Wolves. It is better to go in and fine-tune certain weapons than to affect an entire weapon class. Hawkmoon used to be one of the overall best hand cannons in the game, and was one sought for by the entire PlayStation community, and one that Xbox users anxiously waited to get their hands on. It wasn't completely overpowered, but it was just powerful enough and reliable in its power to make it an amazing weapon. But disappointment came to both sides as they discovered its wings had been clipped and was just a shadow of its former self. Bungie needs to give Hawkmoon back its wings, or it will forever be the gun that once was worth its exotic slot. I appreciate those for sticking around and listening, and thanks for watching.